All right, guys, welcome back. My name is Sal Cosentino. I'm the CEO, cloud architect of InProduction by INC2. And you're wondering, you landed on this page, and why am I here? Why am I listening to you? Well, I'm going to talk to you about my rule of three offers. This is for all sales warriors, right? So for all sales warriors, right? And you warriors out there, you guys are the ones that are prospecting, cold calling, um, calling in and out and getting those deals done and working with the professionals to get those deals going, right? Um, it, it- I want to start off with the core idea. And, the core idea in any professional selling, confusion kills decisions, right? As prospects, they rarely say no because they don't want the solution. They say no because they're overwhelmed, they're unsure, or even because they're afraid of making the wrong choices, right? So these are specifics to let me make this a little bit better for you guys. Oh, make this big. Yeah, and unsure or afraid of making the wrong decisions, right? The rule of three offers this, right? And instead of pitching one option or negotiating prices defensively, you present them with three clear ideas, right? It guides decisions again, confidence, leads them straight to the offer designed for winning. Your structure beats pressure every time, right? So remember that. Instead of pitching that one option, come up with three, right? That's what I would do. And this helps a lot of you guys that are starting into the business that are wanting to starting in the cold calling and prospecting business. And again, having three options, best choice. Never give them that one option because you're stuck with that one option and you're gonna start, so you're just gonna sell that one option, right? So there's always a simple, the better, and the best. Just like in any IT solution, when we're selling, for example, give me a good example here. You have Microsoft Office, right? And uh, Microsoft products, right? As an architect. So I'm going to write Microsoft Office, right? And then we're going to go with the E3, right? So, and I'm going to bring this over to our main slide here. And as you can see, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, uh, make this a little bit bigger, right? So as you can see, E3 has different prices, right? And they have different versions and you compare them to the next plan. So there's always that one or two um, option that you give out to the client. And that way you have three options to deal with. And it guides you, the buyer, or you, the prospect, or your prospects with decisions, builds confidence and leads them, right? Straight to the offer that they want, right? But just remember, have your plans in place and make sure you know what plans you're talking about. Because that way you're ready to go and you're ready to sell them at any time, right? So simple, better, best, always the case. This shifts from the conversation from should I buy to which option fits me best. And I'm going to show you some role playing after, um, once we get down into the further down into the slides. Why the rule of three works, right? So typically the why is our next step here, the why, right? And why it works, right? Just remember something. Humans are wired to compare, not evaluate, right? So I say humans are wired to compare, not evaluate in fear of isolation, right? And this is the case anywhere you go. When we're talking to a human person. They're wired to compare, not evaluate fear. And this is my favorite saying. Um, the next one is also my favorite saying. There's this three options, right? Create a perceived control for the buyer, right? The seller becomes an advisor. Really, an advisor? Not a persuader. Remember, don't persuade the buyer. Become an advisor to the buyer. Put yourself in their shoes, right? Do not become a persuader, all right? And persuader is spelling wrong here. There you go, persuade. Um, and lastly, when you're talking about price and price objections, they decrease because the values framed more in a logical and visual sense. So price objections is not to push the most expensive option, right? The goal is to make the recommended option feel obvious, and that's the whole point here, right? So especially why the rule of all three always works, right? So you're not pushing the most expensive option. You're selling that one option. You're never gonna get it, right? You don't give them that one option. Like it's stupid. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And I've seen 20-year veterans, professionals with degrees, with university doing this, and it irks me inside, right? And again, us sales warriors, professionals, we don't do that. Just like an architect, right? I see architects all the time. They're getting a bunch of hands-on videos and going to like hyperscalers like Microsoft, and yeah, that's fine when you're an engineer, right? But they teach does that teach architecture, right? You can watch a lot of videos, you could do all these certificates, you could do all these tutorials, do or don't have any value, right? But they're there to get you the interviews and to put you into the resume, right? Don't teach anything related to architecture at all, especially if you're going into these certifications. And obviously, I mean, as an educator, yeah, I have no choice. I have to teach and educate you guys on how to do this kind of stuff, right? So, certs are usually based on how to do something. That's all it is, right? It doesn't sell the product. You as an architect, you're there to sell the product. Engineering and certification is not architecture, right? What's architecture? What is architecture? It isn't a technical scale. It's a professional discipline, right? Right? We choose trade-offs, especially when not everyone agrees because there's no perfect solution, right? So we always need to make sure that when our requirements are incomplete, and that's nearly all the time, no matter what, no matter how much information we've got, right? Because maybe there's certain things that nobody's ever done before, right? And when constraints aren't actually real, that cost of failure could be like, for example, an outage that AWS had, for example, it was a few hours, and that cost the organization millions of dollars potentially, right? Or say, for example, you're in an industrial plant that has machines constantly running and producing a lineup of uh, a lineup of things, and these machines, if they're not running, you're potentially losing millions of dollars, right? Because your product isn't moving, it's not in series anymore, right? So the, the price objection decreases the value, right? Vastly value, right? Which is framed visually and obviously logically, right? The structure of a strong three offer framework is pretty simple. And again, we go back to our framework here. Give people three clear options, offer a simple option to X product, a better option of Y product. The one you want him or her to choose is the best one of all cases, which is the best, which is your Z product, right? So the simple one obviously covers more of like a core problem. It's got the lowest price, it's got minimal risk, right? And it anchors price and reassures us caution as buyers, right? Because that's the whole point here is to limit the scope and minimize the risk, right? Then you want to talk about the better option. The better option, why? Not why is in why, but why product, right? Right product or service. Why product? Oh, oh, okay. Why product or service, right? Even if it's a good product, a service, right? You still gotta, there's still better options, simple, better, and best options, right? And again, that smart choice is your recommendation. One is a simple choice, a safe choice. It's just simple. And then the better choice is the smart choice, which is usually a recommended option. And sometimes you'll see a lot of people they'll put recommended, right? In brackets or parentheses, right? And that helps you solve the problem. Includes that safeguard support or optimization, balances of value and investment, right? Because the best balance of value and investment is important. And obviously, it's the option that you want most of your clients to choose, right? Again, then there's the best option, the one that you want him or her to choose, which is obviously the one that you want to sell, the best option, right? And that obviously provides premium support, speed, results, max results, any leverage or long-term protection, right? That makes the better option feel reasonable and kind of give you a well-priced option, right? Um, how do we present how do we present the rule of three, right? And you know, the rule of three, um, you know, the best books and professionals to me, um, because I'm into the quotes. Never give a man one choice, give them three. And these are from like, you know, you want the blueprint, right? You want the blueprint, right? And this is the blueprint that obviously any sales warrior, any person, I don't give a shit who you are, even if you're starting and you're getting into this business, go ahead and do it, right? And somebody needs to tell you, you know what, guy, be it, no problem, right? Remember, hesitation comes with the first offer you give them. So it's either a simple offer, a better offer, or a best offer, right? When you give them too many, yeah, it gets confused, but the total of three, it feels natural, right? It's a natural option, right? You're showing affordability, you're showing value, you show how you can deliver at the highest value. And usually 9 out of 10 times they go in the middle, right? Which is wow, everybody goes in the middle. They choose the middle option, the better option, right? And that's usually the offer built to scale. Never say here are three packages, pick one. And these are some scripts that um, present, especially when you want to present, right? And I'm going to give you one or two right now, a couple role plays, but I'm going to want you to send me an email. I want you to join my class. Send me an email, WhatsApp me, whatever you got to do to get one-on-one, and I'll train you separately. I'll train you and your team how to sell, because honestly, at the end of the day, it's selling the product, right? It's the product, the product, right? We don't, again, as an architect, we need to know, salespeople need to know how to sell, right? Obviously, but we as architects need to know, like, what's the underlying technology, how it works, right? We need to sell that product to them, and that way it would be a fit, and it would be a fit that's equating or helping our business do better, right? As architects, we're concerned more about the technology, right? And how that's going to behave at scale. But again, it's how you present the three rules, right? The better, the best, the best. And again, when you're selling a product solution, you want three options. And I'm going to how to present the rule of three, right? Right? And again, language matters. Language matters, right? If you follow me, right? And I'm gonna say I'm gonna put this in two categories. I wanna just because language does matter, right? And I'm gonna put this in two categories, right? And the first category is gonna be never say and instead say, right? That'll kind of help you kind of put into perspective what this is all about. Um, yeah, never. See if I can never say and instead say, oh, this is like torture for me. So I'm gonna go back to my LA. Yeah, find my new pen. Give me 1 second. And again, this works for any salesman, car salesman, any sales product that you want to buy, anything that's going to, you know, allow a future prospect to invest, right? And let's go to the typing here. So I'm going to say never say, and I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for your eyes to see. I apologize, right? And we know language matters. And I'm going to take this off. Okay. So never say, instead say. And you're going to hear me do this a lot, especially with role playing, because this never say, instead say concept is, you know, is always going to work for you, right? Especially in this situation where, right? So let's say this. You want to present something, right? It's all about it, your language and how you communicate, offer, and how you do specific things, right? And language matters. Yeah, you're right. The language does matter. So think of this concept. You never want to say, here are three products, pick one. Please pick one, please. Right? It's you never want to say that, right? That's the worst option that you can, that's the worst option that you're going to um worst scenario you're going to be in, right? You never want to say that, right? It's a no. Here are three packages, pick one. Instead, what you want to do is say, hey, based on what you shared, I want to give you three clear paths, right? And I want to give you three clear paths forward so you can choose what fits best. See how that came out? Then walk them left to right from simple to best, right? Then you say, okay, go back to our design here. I'm offering a simple option, right? Which is a service or product X, blah, 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 blah. Or I'm offering a better option Y, which is a product or service, blah, 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 blah. Or I'm offering the best option, right? Which is what is product or service Z. But then all of a sudden you come up and for example, you've offered your options, you've talked, you da 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 da, you said what you have to do. As sales warriors, you keep going, you never give up. Oops. And you start talking about price objection, right? And this is where my role play comes in, because role playing is awesome and it's good to have a team with you or somebody, a partner with you to do these sort of things. So, partner up with somebody, your wife, your family, friend, or colleague, and do it, right? And a lot of the times, you start talking about the price objection. Okay, that's weird. Like, everybody gets into that price objection, right? And what's the cost, and what's this, and what's the price? One, don't object to anything, right? Do not give them anything. Do not argue with them. Do not, right? So remember the word do not. Do not argue with them. Do not give them anything up front, right? You're being too um you're now they've taken that number or whatever price it is or whatever it is, and they're now you're now basically making this bias of things that they paid for. It's just a mind fuck. I don't give a shit, right? And it's the highest form of control inside of a sales is to make your customer feel like they're in control. And this is a great quote that I one of my good friends gave me, and it makes sense, right? You want to play the dance. You want to stay on frequency. You don't want to get off their frequency, right? So when we're doing these role plays, you want to stay on their frequency, right? Because our job is to keep them in the in control, right? So in control, sort of like when you're in a car, you got your steering wheel, you got your 9 and 3. You're sitting in that car, and the car salesman's like, hey, this is a great car. Oh wow, it fits, it makes you look good, you feel great. You're sitting in that car, you looking at the salesman, you're looking at the dash, and you're wowed by the cleanliness, you're wowed by everything, right? But in their heart, in their head, they could be sitting shotgun, right? But they're steering but in their head they're steering the car right now, right? So you never want to give them the price. Do not say it, and don't say I can't do that right now, right? But anyway, let's go ahead and do a role play. I'm by myself, obviously, today, so we're kind of one on one, and we're gonna role play with ourselves here. So as you're listening, you're gonna kind of play the prospect warrior game. So I'm gonna play both the prospect, right, and the sales warrior, right? And sort of like a movie script, you're talking to somebody. There's always that middle gap between the conversation, the Zoom call, or whatever the case may be, right? And usually the prospect as your client is the one that you want to um yeah, right. And again, you don't want to give it to them up front yet. Take a little bit of time to think about it, stay on their frequency, relax, breathe in and out before you actually get out there, right? So for example, you have a prospect, you have a sales warrior, and the prospect says, hey, this feels expensive. I'm sure you guys all heard of this. All right. And then the sales warrior comes in. It's like, okay, that's fair. Let me simplify this. Okay. So you're not forced into one option, right? And the best part about this is my rule of three offers gives you three clear options, right? And I want you to get that through your head because as a sales where I'm saying, hey, that's fair, no problem. Let me simplify this so you're not forced into one option. There are three ways, obviously, clients typically move forward, right? And a lot of my clients that I've talked to in the past, um, you know, I've said that, right? And it's like, wow, I don't have to spend that hour, 2 hours educating you on my product or system let's say, for example, Microsoft 365, as we talked about, the better, the best options, right? For E3, E5, F1, F2, and you know, we don't have to for you to have an additional source of income, right? So why is this product or service better to help? Like, why is this product or service better to help you in the future? Oh man, if it does take in 3 hours, an hour and a half to educate them, that's a lot of time you're going to lose, right? So what you want to do is get the response back and say, hey, I need to talk to, whatever. And these are specific objections. And obviously, the simple objection would be to solve the immediate issue based on the conversation you're having, right? Lowest investment, but no option, but no optimization, right? Then obviously the one the client always wants, and these are things you're going to tell them. You're going to explain three ways clients typically move forward in this aspect on your product or service, right? So you have your simple, your best, and your better. So if we are role playing, we're saying, hey, going back to this diagram, simple, you're offering an option to X product or service, and you're saying, hey, um, does this solve the immediate issue? Does this lower any investments that you have, or but does that have or but no optimization? Or you go through a better option with option two, where a lot of people, obviously, we're not telling this to the client, but a lot of people will choose this, and it solves the issue fully and prevents it from reoccurring. And this is what 99% of the people want, especially when you're talking to your role playing list for the price objection, right? And two, when you're talking about price objection, you're sticking to the objection that way, right? Then you have your best, right? And obviously, you want to sell your best product, right? Who doesn't want to sell their best product, right? And that gives you obviously the speed, the priority, and the long-term protection, right? So the question isn't which is the cheapest, and this is me telling the prospect, is which one makes the most sense for your situation. And pause. Remember, frequency, pause. Let them get a clear mind of what happened, and then you go ahead and you give them those three options, right? Um, if the prospect is qualified, obviously you can go a little bit deeper, book some time. But again, your job isn't to be a hardcore person. Like you have to close every option, but you have to be that person who has to communicate, who has to have a conversation, right? If you have problems communicating or conversing, you don't need to. We don't need to struggle with having, you know, as a person, we don't need to struggle with having conversations with people, right? So as a sales warrior, which is usually an associate or sales professional. Um, make the attempt without even knowing the customer, right? So you're calling or cold calling, you don't know who the person is on the other line, right? So you even just, that's just could be that's a friend's, that's my friend's, that's, it could be anybody, right? At that point, you're being inside of sales, right? Um, Price objection, uh, you have your cost, go down to, let me get you another, well, right? You have your cost versus, right? Even car salesman. Oops. Reframe. And this is all role play stuff, right? Hey, thanks for being direct about the price. And this is the Warrior. Let me ask you something first. Let's say when you say it's expensive, and these are common scenarios that happen, are you comparing it to another option or to the impact of doing nothing? Usually, the product will say, well, most the prices compared to others, right? And you as a sales warrior, yeah, that makes sense. The key difference isn't what's not priced to be the cheapest, right? We're priced to eliminate the risk, and we were mentioned earlier, right? So if that outcome of E3 or E5, Microsoft E3 or E5 license, does the price still feel like the main issue, right? Without even giving them the price, right? You don't have to educate them. They told you that. Oh wow, you have to spend an hour and a half. No, you're not educating them. You have to understand that, right? And you have to give them the reality check. I go, let's separate two things for a second, right? Give them the reality check, right? The budget reality check. And these are some things you could talk about too, right? To move the conversation going. And again, you never want to give them the price of the program. Don't give it to them up front. Don't argue. Do not argue, right? Prospects are qualified. You can go deeper and book meetings with them if they're overqualified. You can sound into that, right? And then at the end of the day, just give them off the best price, right? Or even maybe the price based on what a lot of people in your territory or province or GTA location, like you've been doing this for a long time, and you're gonna tell the person like, hey, wow, awesome. Obviously. You don't have to educate me. I don't have to spend those hours, 1.5 hours to 3 hours in presentation, sort of like what we're doing right now. But even if the best price is based on just what a lot of people that I talk to around the neighborhood, right? Like, and that could be any business, industrial, commercial, etc. And obviously, you're going to have to mention promotions to help out, right? And usually, is that fair? And that's what the sales warriors need to do, right? And they're going to say, yeah, just get them back. Just your goal is to role play the budget, but get them to say good uh, good quote that I got from a mentor in reading some books is get them back on sales train line. Get them back on the yes train line, the yes train line. And this is what is important, and this is where I'm going to end off the yes train line, right? Get them back into that conversation. And then at that point, you're say, hey, by the way, everybody wants the best price, everybody wants the best investment, right? If your prospect is qualified, you can go obviously in deeper and you can send a meeting, or you can go ahead and you know, finalize the thing, right? So again, this obviously feels right. Usually, it's like okay, that pause right there is maintaining in frequency, right? Um, Blueprint, right? Blueprint. Where's my blueprint? Yeah, my blueprint. I want you to try it for yourself. And the rule of three only works when paired with an honest guidance, right? So as sales warriors, we're gonna recommend openly. We're gonna explain trade offs, right? We're gonna warn against bad fits. Example: hey, I don't recommend a simple option if uptime is critical for you, right? But are you looking to save money now? If so, how does that is that that's going to introduce if it saves money now, but it introduces risks later, right? And by me telling you that I don't recommend the simple option if uptime is critical for you, but it does save money now, but introduces risk later. Bang. There you go. That right there builds trust and accelerates the decision of the buyer or the prospect, right? That's what you want, right? And everybody's got their way of doing that. People don't want more choices, they want clear ones, right? When you master the simple, best, and better, you'll stop selling products or services and start delivering clarity, right? Clarity close deals. I'm gonna leave you off with that one, guys. Take care.